Now, again, which brings me to another very important thought that I really wanted to tell here. You really have to move fast. Okay, so I mean, we are now have all the tools and all the options and all the possibilities to try, try and fail, try, and then eventually you will reach your great solution. Maybe you will not reach the solution, and it's also okay. Maybe your problem is not solvable currently. I don't know. It also can happen,
Yeah.
but mostly not.
Yeah.
so so really very important point. I mean, use all the tools that you have to start moving fast. You don't need to sit and to train a huge model before you even know whether your problem can be solved with some kind of model. So just
Yeah.
go and try different things, and then improve. Of course, you probably would like to train your own models either to reduce costs or to
Yes.
improve efficiency, of course, if you improve accuracy, of course. But
Right.
start from something like ready to use.
Yeah. So training is something that sounds really like easy. I just bring the files or the photos or whatever, and or the videos, and then the machine is like learning a new thing. But it's kind of expensive if you want to make it like again and again for a company, and they need to reconsider if they need to use something which is an API external tool like ChatGPT or Bard, or they want to use an open source model, or they want to start from scratch building whatever they want. But just to understand that, you need to try these tools and to understand what is the meaning. And I guess
Exactly.
that most coders are not used to these kinds of technologies, maybe some of them, but not most of them, right?
That's right. That's right. I must admit, even myself, when let's say when ChatGPT came out, in its first version, I mean, I was too skeptical. I mean, I tried it; it was nice, like okay, funny, that's all. But then at the specific stage, I really had like kind of to to force myself to use it. And then when now, how do I use it? I use it for various tasks. So if we talk about coding, sometimes you really need to write like this small function, this small and simple function, and I know how to write it, but it will take me like 10 minutes to write it, or I can ask ChatGPT and I will get it in 10 seconds. So it really speeds up the work, the process, it really, really speeds up. And for coders, I think like you really should work with ChatGPT or Bard opened, in some tab. And again, personally, I really had to force myself to do it because it wasn't naturally for me. Like as a coder, for me, naturally to go and write the code, not to ask
Yeah.
ChatGPT to write it for me.
Yeah.
But I think that it helps a lot. Really, it just speeds
Yeah.
up the work. It allows me like to focus on really difficult and interesting stuff rather than on some stuff that okay, I wrote it like 10 times, 100 times in my life, and I need to write it again.
Yeah. So when you teach new coders, junior ones, do you teach them differently right now because they need to understand the infrastructure, the high level view, or they need to know these tools in order to do their job? Or it's they need to know the basics. It doesn't matter that they have these tools.
So actually, teaching, I must admit, I really love teaching. I'm good at it, and I really love it. I mean,
Wow.
it's really great, but it's a nightmare because you create. No, really, I mean it. Why do I say that it's a nightmare? Because you create some course, let's say, or some lecture, okay, or some like workshop in specific theme, and then I mean you conduct this workshop, and after 3 months, I mean it can be like half of it might be not relevant anymore.
Right.
Or it's
Right.
like you really have to, and it's not only AI thing, it also development of languages and libraries and etc etc. So I mean I find myself like taking the same workshop and re-preparing it again and again from scratch, even though it's like kind of the same topic. But yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's so dynamic. You really have to adjust. And yes, I'm really sure that all the fields of AI and let's say all the generative models, they really for me, I teach them in all the current courses, because I mean, again, it gives you superpower. If you don't use these superpowers, others will use and you will not get the
Yeah.
job. So
You
that's
know
how it
what came
works.
to my mind when you said it's like you need to change all the time. You need to be up to date. You need to like most people. I know. I don't know if most, like many people in Israel in general, would go and learn in a university. They would go to get computer science education, get a degree, right? And I think like at least in the first 2 years, you're learning the basics of something which is involving math and not really coding, right? And then you have like maybe year or two afterwards that you're learning things, but I guess, and correct me if I'm wrong, that their teachers are not really up to date all the time. They give them like more or less the same things or the basics, which are not really relevant, or maybe some of them are not relevant. So, in that case, would you suggest someone that is thinking about starting their career to reevaluate the need for higher education and go and take some courses and just start do whatever you're doing in coding and learn from that or not?
So I'll tell you, in general, if you look at this, the practical way, yes, you actually, I mean, it's hard for me to tell this. And I mean, it's like, it's a bit problematical maybe to say this, but yeah, in practical way, you do not really need to go for the higher education. Again, you really need to be like, this kind of a person that can, uh, um, learn by himself. It's not
Yeah.
easy, but yes, you have all the data in courses on internet, or you can choose internet courses or like physical ones or whatever, frontal ones. That's fine. And if you kind of a person that is excited about this stuff and is curious about this stuff, I think that actually higher education will only slow you down. Okay, because you're right, they will teach you like, I think I did something like 7 or 8 courses in math. I don't use even one of it. I mean, I don't even remember it. Okay, so
Yeah.
I mean, it's just waste of time. Let's face it. I knew from
Right.
day one that I would not like to stay in academy. I like business. I like the free world. But
Yeah. Yeah. To do things in the real world, to
do
act upon the
things.
real world. Right.
Yes, and I really think that in this field, not only this, but in high tech industry, experience, it doesn't come from the academy. It comes from your job and from your willing to learn, to educate yourself, and
Yeah.
to be curious.
And do you see that in people who are looking for juniors? Would they prefer to take someone who has higher education, 3 or 4 years of learning, or they just want to see what they could do?
The second option, they really want to see what you can do. This is the most important thing. I mean, you still have some companies with like preconditions to even like pass this first stage of like getting to the interview. So these are companies like, I don't know, Elbit, Intel,
Traditional.
like
Yeah.
more traditional Microsoft and stuff like that. So for juniors, they will require some like education and field, of course, higher education. But even though, let's say, I'm sure that if you take even like Microsoft or companies like that, if you have someone experienced and without higher education, they also like will check him out.
Yeah.
So it's relevant only for your first job, like as a junior. But again,
Wow.
it's not the most companies. Most companies, what they're interested in is like they want to see that you know to do stuff, okay, without like asking too many questions, without just want
Yeah.
to see that you can do your job.
You know how to find the answers yourself. You know how to educate yourself and to learn new things yourself.